Hi, Henrike. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Erin. Hi, nice to be here.
So you are joining us as part of our Route to CFO series that Altum Consulting are holding at the moment, for you to tell us a bit more about your own journey and experience of becoming a CFO. So it'll be really great to hear about your own experiences, then hopefully we can educate and help other people that are also in the same position looking at taking that next step. So I'm really excited to hear everything that you've got to tell us. So do you mind just introducing yourself to everyone?
Of course, Erin. My name is Henrike Hartemink. I'm the country CFO for the Netherlands at Novartis. Novartis is a global pharmaceutical company based in Switzerland.
Awesome, thanks. So to start off this interview, I guess it's better to really go in with quite an open question. So what was your route to getting to the CFO level position?
My route to getting to a CFO position started with education. That prepared me to become eventually a CFO. I have a master in financial economics and an executive master in finance and control. And during my master, I had no idea what I wanted to do. But I got the opportunity to do an internship at a small advisory company in the Netherlands. And I wrote my thesis there, and they offered me a job afterwards. And in hindsight, that first job was crucial for the rest of my career because it was a very international environment. This company supported Dutch companies with investments in Eastern Europe and Asia. So the customers that I worked for were merely finance directors or CFOs of the international business. So throughout that period, I really learned that, in fact, at one point in my career, I wanted to be at the other end of the table. And after a few years there, I had the opportunity to join my biggest customer, which was a large Dutch dairy company. And I stayed there for around 15 years. That company merged into what is now Friesland Campina, Royal Friesland Campina, one of the largest dairy cooperatives in the world. So it was a very important move for me to go there. If you look at the roles that I had at that company, I started as a management trainee. And straight after, I moved into a commercial finance role, my first real finance function. And then gradually, I could pick up bigger roles, bigger scope, from a commercial controller for the Netherlands to a business controller for Western Europe, to finance director of an operating company, to finance director of a global product group. And finally, my last role was CFO of an ingredients business where Friesland Campina was the largest shareholder. During my journey there, I also had the opportunity to work and live abroad for almost 8 years. Actually, my first finance director role was in Hong Kong, and it was followed by finance director of a global product group based in Singapore. And last but not least, looking at my career, after several years with Friesland Campina, I actually left. And I joined Novartis, which is my current company. I started as a commercial controller again, but then I had an opportunity to participate in the rollout of a system implementation, an ERP system implementation. And I spent several years in accounting and reporting. And in hindsight, that was very crucial because after that role, I left again and I joined the dairy industry again. And soon after, I became a finance director. And it really helped me in that journey. And today, I'm a country CFO, like I said before.
Amazing. So it sounds like you had a lot of experience within different types of businesses and internationally, and you got a real sort of a big amount of exposure into different companies and different types of roles then. So do you think that's quite important?
I think it really helps in your journey to become a CFO to get a broad understanding of the businesses, its processes, but also to understand the balance sheet, the cash flow. In the end, as a CFO, you're also safeguarding the assets of the company. So you also need to have a fair understanding of the hardcore finance, I believe, which is the accounting and the reporting. So it all helped me to where I am today.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. So tell me a bit more then about your role as a finance director. to then your role as a CFO. What are the differences between these two positions and taking that next step?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. And I think in my career, I felt the differences the strongest when I made two moves. And the first move was around 12 years ago when I became a finance director in Hong Kong. And the second time was when I became a global CFO in the ingredients business, which was 5 years ago. And I think in both cases, I really felt the level of accountability increase significantly. I think the moment that you step into a management role in a company, your scope broadens to strategy, business performance, investment, but also compliance, people welfare, people engagement. So it becomes really a different scope. It also means at the same time that your visibility and your exposure increases, both internally and externally. So you really need to think about what type of leader do you want to be and how do you want to role model and truly live the values of the company. And last but not least, and I especially learned that when I became CFO of this global business, is that you need to learn to make your own judgment. You need to distinguish right from wrong. You need to understand and follow your moral compass, trust your intuition. It's a very different type of role. And finally, you also need to find inspiration, not only inside, but also outside. And you need to build your network outside to really make sure that you get the challenges and support that you need.
Yeah, yeah. And then in terms of your experience, as well as you mentioned at the beginning, you've worked as a CFO in a smaller organization as well as a larger multinational. So where do you see the differences are as a CFO in these two different types of businesses?
I think especially in the latter part that I said about your judgment, your network, I think when you work in a larger organization, quite often you will still have corporate support, corporate roles that can help you. But when you are in a smaller organization and you are really the CFO reporting into the supervisory board, like I did at the time, there's nobody above you anymore, right? So you need to find this inspiration, this challenge also outside of your own company. And you need to learn to form your own judgments. That for me is the biggest difference between working in a smaller organization or a bigger organization.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of the challenges that you've faced in moving up to a CFO level position, because I presume it's not all just been sunshine and roses making that career journey. So what were the challenges that you feel you've faced, not only getting to this CFO level position, but also as a female leader? I think that's probably something that we should also recognise and touch on.
Yes, I think that's a very relevant element to it as well. In general, I can say when I was younger, I didn't really understand the rules of the game, how to progress my career beyond just working hard and delivering upon promise, right? I didn't fully understand it. And on top of that, I was merely working in male-dominated environments and quite often in masculine cultures as well. And the masculine culture is reflected in values, communication style, leadership style, KPIs. So as a woman, I wasn't always comfortable. I really had to learn how to find my way in those roles and organizations. And at the same time, stay true to myself. So how do you do that, right? That's the key question. So throughout my career, I was really lucky. I had some very good bosses that really believed in me and that helped me to progress and also find my way and create or grab opportunities. And in most cases, they were actually men, but with a very progressive mindset, progressive leadership style. And to give you some examples, one boss nominated me for the role in Hong Kong. And another boss helped me to raise my hand to lead a regional project, which was not in my stronghold. And the third one helped me to better focus on what really matters and not try to keep all the balls in the air. So in hindsight, all these experiences really helped me to be where I am today and to really take ownership of my own career and worry a bit less about whether I'm 100% capable of picking up a task or a role, which is a very feminine thing, right? So still today, I benefit from those experiences.
So it sounds that it's not necessarily about having to work harder, but maybe a bit smarter and using your networks and people around you to really take those opportunities, and just going for it by the sounds of it.
Absolutely right. It's, of course, you need to deliver first, but then it's also about getting the right opportunities, creating the right opportunities, create visibility, exposure, use your net, build your network, use your network. Yes.
I think that's
plays
really
a very important role.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing advice as well, especially, you know, in terms of the world at the moment and in diversity and inclusion, and everything is moving forward a lot more, but I think there is still that element, where people in a female lead role do question how to get there and what maybe, you know, they need to do to be able to get there as well. So I think that's really great advice, that it is just about sort of utilizing the people around you and mentorships and things like that to gain that exposure and taking the opportunities when they arise.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's going to be really helpful. So you just mentioned hindsight, which sometimes is always a beautiful thing. So what did you learn in hindsight from your own career journey?
I had many, many learnings, I think, like most of us, right? And it's always easy to say in hindsight. But if I need to list a few, I think the first and most important one is, in hindsight, all steps that I've taken so far contributed to where I am today, including the steps that ended up with a short tenure in an organization because I was not passionate about the business or because I could not fully embrace the company culture. And every step was an opportunity to learn. And every step brought me closer to where I am today because I got a better feeling of what I liked in the company and what I didn't like, and where I could thrive or not. So that's a very important one. Maybe a second one would be, you are the owner of your own career. So don't be shy, don't be too modest to tell people around you what your ambition is, but also ask for coaching, advice, and honest feedback along the way. And find people that really believe in you and that are willing to help you. And with that also comes a responsibility. Take a bit of risk and grab opportunities. Don't overthink. Every chance can be a learning opportunity. There is no wrong turn. That is at least my experience. And last but not least, reputation is really important. It's crucial. So always think about how you want to be seen as a leader, and even more important, as a human being. And strive to leave a good mark wherever you are, and a positive legacy. And not only because it's the right thing to do, but also you might come across the same company or people later in your career. It's a very small world in the end. And if you look at me, I rejoined the company twice. I think if my reputation was not good with those companies, that would not have happened.
Yeah.
So reputation is really important.
Yeah. No, that again, that's great advice, really great advice. Exactly as you said, you know, reputation in particular. You never know who you might meet along your journey again. And actually, the world of finance and business is relatively small if you think about it. So it's always good to keep those relationships with people, isn't it? And going back to, as you said earlier, about using your network, and building those relationships to help with your future career and your development.
Yes, absolutely true.
That's great. So if you could give then your younger self some career advice, what would that be?
I think first of all is to enjoy the journey wherever you are in your career. I'm very much goal oriented. So sometimes I forget to enjoy the journey, but it's really important to enjoy and to also celebrate the progress that you are making. That's the first thing. The second thing that I would tell myself is be patient. Change needs time, especially in bigger organizations. It can't happen overnight. Don't get too frustrated over the pace of change. And at the same time, don't lose too much sleep on things that you can't change either. So focus on the things that matter, the areas where you can have impact, and work really hard to realize those. And lastly, maybe is Have realistic expectations of your boss. All bosses have strengths, but also weakness. They're not superheroes either.
That's brilliant. And I think that's actually an amazing bit of advice, because you do look at your bosses, don't you, and your managers, like you look at your parents almost as idols, and that they should know everything because they're sat above you. So that's
Absolutely.
yeah.
And
No,
then it's
that's
also so easy to get disappointed, right? Yes.
definitely. No, I agree. I agree. So, when people look in their careers in finance in particular, they see CFO as being the pinnacle, and that is their aim and their end goal. But of course, it isn't. That isn't the last role in your career always. So, where do you see after a CFO position? Where do you see the other routes and opportunities further from that?
I fully agree, Erin, that it's a misconception to believe that CFO is the endpoint. I think companies are so different. It really depends on the size of the company, the industry, where you are in the value chain, where you are in the life cycle. And every job will have its own challenges, its own strategies, its own risks. So the job can be very different and very exciting wherever you are. Even when you are in a bigger organization, if you have a country role or a regional role or a global role, it can be really different, the level of accountability, and equally exciting. So it's absolutely no endpoint for me.
And what about yourself then, Henrike? What's sort of next for you?
Well, actually, I'm very much enjoying where I am today, my current job. I only joined 6 months ago, so I don't think too much yet about my next step, because it takes time to build your network, to build your legacy, right? What I would like to do at one point in my career, moving further, is to move abroad again. I think with my family, I think if you ever try that, you will always keep this kind of longing to explore different parts of the world, to stretch yourself. So, Erin, I really don't know where I will be in a few years' time, but at the moment, I'm perfectly fine and happy where I am.
Yeah, and like you said, you're doing well. You're still building everything up at the moment, but the world is your oyster at least, and it's good
Exactly.
to establish what next steps are after that CFO position. That you can always still strive for something else, and there are still opportunities outside of that
There
particular
will be a
role.
lot of opportunities.
100%,
Absolutely.
definitely. Well, Henrike, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure having you join us for our Route to CFO series, and our first one as well, I would like to say. So, no, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and I'm sure all of the advice and the information that you've shared is going to be really useful for people that are on their own route and their own career journey to getting to CFO. So, thank you very much for sharing that. And yeah, we really look forward to speaking to you again soon.
You're welcome, Erin, and I really loved it as well. It's wonderful to be here, and I really hope that it can help people that are on their way to become a CFO.
Definitely. Thanks so much. Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.